Welcome to 21st Sports Recap and Reaction for the Houston Texans at the Carolina Panthers in their Week 2 matchup, September 20th, 2015. We're going to go over the scores and we're going to go over the stats. We're going to break it down and give our analysis. But let's start off in the first quarter with about 8 minutes left in the first. Randy Bullock put the first points on the scoreboard with a 43-yard field goal kick to make it Houston 3, Carolina 0. So that would be the score after one. And then in the second quarter, with about 11 and a half minutes left before halftime, Cam Newton hit Ted Ginn Jr. for a 25-yard touchdown pass. And with the extra point by Graham Gano, it was 7-0 Carolina as the Panthers were in the lead by 4 over the Texans. Then with about 5.5 minutes left before halftime, Graham Gano added another 3 points with a 28-yard field goal to make it a 7-point lead for Carolina, with the score 10-3 Panthers over the Texans heading into the locker rooms at halftime. Then in the third quarter, the Texans got into the end zone as Ryan Mallett hit Garrett Graham for a 7-yard touchdown pass with about 8.5 minutes left in the third, and the extra point by Bullock would tie the game at 10 points apiece. So now, with a minute left in the third, Cam Newton does the helicopter as he spins through the air into the end zone on a 2-yard touchdown run, somehow landing somewhat on his feet, as it was quite a sight to behold. And with the extra point by Graham Gano, it was 17-10 Panthers over the Texans. So then in the fourth quarter, with about 9 minutes left in this game, Cam Newton threw his second touchdown pass of the game, his third touchdown overall in the game. And this one was to Corey Brown, a 36-yard touchdown pass. And with the extra point by Gano, it was 24-10 Carolina over Houston. Then with 6.5 minutes left, Ryan Mallett would run it in from 6 yards out to make it a 7-point game after Bullock hit the extra point, as it was now 24-17 Carolina over Houston. So now after the touchdown, the Panthers would take over on their own 29 after the kickoff, and they would end up going 36 yards in 7 plays as they got all the way down to the Houston 35, and Graham Gano came out to attempt a 53-yard field goal, but it was blocked. And so now the Texans would take over after the blocked field goal, as they were looking to potentially tie this game up with 7 points, maybe even go for 2 if they got in the end zone and actually go ahead possibly. But they would have to get down the field and score first, and the game would come to the 2-minute warning. They came out of the 2-minute warning, and they even got a couple of first downs. Even on a 4th and 1, Polk had a 3-yard run that would bring the ball to the Carolina 26-yard line. Mallett then threw a 7-yard pass to Cecil Shorts the third to bring the ball to the Carolina 19 as they were now in the red zone. Then an incomplete pass, and the Panthers had to burn their final timeout. The Texans still had a timeout to spend. It was now 3rd and 3, and an incomplete pass. There ended up being a penalty against the Panthers that would give the Texans further life in this drive, as they actually would have had to go for on 4th down anyway. But now it was a first down on the 14, and then an incomplete pass brought up 2nd down, and then another incomplete pass. But they ended up having a penalty against Ryan Mallett for grounding, and it ended up being upheld, and so they upheld the penalty. Houston would take their final timeout because of the grounding penalty, and now it was 3rd and 22 on the Carolina 26. Mallett then hit Chris Polk for a 6-yard pass. That made it 4th and 16 at the Carolina 20, and an incomplete pass would make the ball turn over on downs, and now all that was left to do was for Superman Cam Newton to take the knee in the victory formation as the Panthers held on to win this one in a nail-biter as it came down to the very end. And quite an exciting game, a defensive battle for sure, as the Panthers just kind of out-physicaled the Texans, especially when it came to on the ground, is Cam Newton had a huge performance. He had 76 yards on the ground, 10 carries, and a touchdown. He also was 18 for 37, 195 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. So 3 total touchdowns for Superman. And he even flew in the game at one point when he did that helicopter. John Stewart also had 17 carries for 62 yards. Tolbert, 5 carries for 31 yards, and even Fozzie Whitaker got in on the action with 1 carry for 3 yards. On the other side, Ryan Mallett was asked to do all the heavy lifting, as they had him throw the ball 58 times in this game, and he only completed 27 of those pass attempts for 244 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Their leading rusher for Houston was Chris Polk with 14 carries for 38 yards. So they really were not committed to the run whatsoever for some reason. They're like, yeah, run the ball. What do we need to run the ball for? They only gave it to Alfred Blue 5 times. He had only 6 yards. When we look at the passing stats for the receivers and tight ends, Greg Olsen led the game in receptions and in yards received with 6 receptions for 70 yards. Brown had 3 receptions for 57 yards. Ted Ginn Jr., 4 receptions for 41 yards. Funches, 1 reception for 15 yards. Brown and Ginn also had the touchdown receptions, by the way. I'm sure you might be interested in that. And then for the Texans, Nate Washington, 3 receptions for 63 yards. DeAndre Hopkins, 5 receptions for 53 yards. Grimes had 6 receptions for 40 yards. Cecil Shorts III, 6 receptions for 34 yards. So as Mallett was spreading it around quite a bit, as he got the ball to 9 different targets between the receivers, tight ends, and running backs. He was, like I say, he spread it around quite a bit. And but they just were asking him to do too much. Not a balanced attack. You're not gonna win. You can't just pass. He passed it 58 times. Unless it's Tom Brady throwing the ball, or maybe Aaron Rodgers, you're gonna lose. You don't ask Ryan Mallett to throw it 58 times and expect to win unless you're like, I don't know, crazy? Like, what are you thinking? But the Carolina, they look good on defense even without Luke Kuechly. Kuechly wasn't even playing in this game. Of course, Tom Davis was, and he had 6 tackles to lead the game in tackles on either side. And Edwards had a sack for the Panthers. And of course, A.J. Klein, he had an interception for Carolina. Moore had an interception for the Texans. J.J. Watt did have a sack in this game. He also had 4 tackles. Cushing, Joseph, and Watt each had 4 tackles apiece for the Texans. And Demps and Pleasant combined for a sack as well over on the Houston side. Look at team stats. First downs, the Panthers had 25 and the Texans 21. And on third downs, the Texans were 5 for 19 on third downs, just 26% converted. And on the other side, Carolina 4 for 13, converting just 30%. The Texans went for it 4 times on fourth down, just converting twice for a 50% conversion rate on fourth. And total net yards, 350 for the Panthers, 300 for the Texans. Net rushing yards, 172 for the Panthers, 61 for the Texans. Let me look at net passing yards, 178 net passing yards for the Panthers, as Cam was sacked twice for a total loss of 17. And net passing yards for the Texans, 239. Mallett was sacked once for a loss of 5 yards. We look at the red zone efficiency, and the Panthers were 1 for 2 in the red zone, converting 50% of the time, and the Texans 2 for 3, converting just 66 is okay. It was better than the Panthers in the red zone, but it was really their lack of a running game that really hurt him in this one. And the time of possession, 32 minutes and 29 seconds for the Panthers and 27 minutes and 31 seconds for the Texans. They said the fact that they just didn't run the ball, they were still in it because of their defense. Of course, the Panthers don't necessarily score a lot of points, but they get the job done. They do what they have to do, and they're playing actually pretty good now. They're 2-0 in Carolina. I don't know how for real it is. I don't know how much stock to take in that. But as I've said in the other videos, that the teams that are 2-0 make the playoffs 63% of the time. It's not a guarantee, but it's a good start, and they're getting off on the right foot, especially in a division that's wide open. Last year they won the division with a losing record, and right now they haven't even lost a game. So they're doing a lot better, actually, than I thought they would be doing at this point in the season. And the Texans are quite the opposite. They're doing a lot worse than I thought they would be doing. So they've been playing a little bit of musical chairs with their quarterback situation. Of course, they did stick with Mallet throughout this whole game. But like I said, they asked them to do way too much. It's not like as if they were trailing, by like 20 points or something in this game. I mean, this game was actually pretty close. They had a chance to win it on the final possession. Or, well, not to win it, but to tie it and send it into overtime. And potentially win it with the 2-point conversion. So they were right in the thick of things, right down the wire. They were even in the red zone at the end of the game with the chance to send it into overtime or possibly even, go ahead. So it's not as if their defense didn't do their job. They kept them in it. But just without the running game, and you're going to have them pass the ball that many times, so this doesn't make sense. And they're 0-2 now. Teams that are 0-2 only make the playoffs 12% of the time. So they're going to have quite the uphill battle, especially as their division is looking tougher than people expected. We'll see how the Colts do on Monday night. But we saw, Tennessee looked good in week 1. Of course, they got beat up by Cleveland in week 2 here. And then we also saw the Jacksonville Jaguars pull off a huge upset against the Miami Dolphins. So, and I already thought the Jags were going to be better than people expected. Didn't really think they were going to do that, but so it's going to be tough for the Texans moving forward. Like I said, the Colts kind of own the South and have owned the South for a while. And so starting off 0-2 and playing the kind of football they're playing, at least on the offensive side of the ball, they're missing Arian Foster. That's the thing, too, you got to remember with the Texans, is once Arian Foster gets back, that's going to change the whole dynamic. That should open up the run. Then maybe the thing is the play call. They still got to call running plays, but you would imagine when they get him back that they would start doing that. Like I said, things are looking good for Carolina, starting out 2-0. Not so much in Houston, but we'll see how things progress from here. Let me know what you think and what you take away from this game. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and had a good weekend and enjoyed all the sports.